Hey, what's up, you guys? Does capitalism get you down?
Does the constant pressure to be productive get to you?
Are you tired of being a cog in the machine?
Then we invite you to be part of the revolution against toxic productivity by embracing the useless things.
Welcome to episode 74 of the Very Unimportant People podcast.
Do less.
My name is Lidia, and this week I got stitches for the first time in my life. 23 years old. Stitches,
Because she's
baby.
a snitch.
Ooh,
Because snitches get
I
stitches.
finally paid my price for being a snitch. All these years later.
And my name's Courtney, and this week I'm in Ontario.
Ontario, where good things grow.
In Ontario.
Yay! How's Ontario been so far?
It's been fine.
Yeah.
It's been fine. Yeah.
Accurate.
I like the people in Ontario. I have no desire to come back outside of the people. So it's been fun. It's been nice, like seeing family and friends and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
We went to the Scandinave or Scandive. I'd never know how to pronounce it. Spa, which is in Blue Mountain. And you know what? I had to call them a couple times to like change around my reservation because my flight was like a little messed up.
Mm-hmm.
And even the person on like the recorded message didn't know how to say it. Like she said it differently like 3 different times. She
Isn't
was
it
like,
just
the Scandinave?
I thought it was just Scandinavian spa. Or whatever.
It's not. It's not. It's like Scandinave, but then everyone calls it the Scandive spa. So I don't know how to say it. But it's that spa in Blue Mountain. There's one in Whistler too. So we went there. That was a lot of fun. Some relaxing. Saw some friends.
Aww,
Stared at the concrete blocks of Ontario.
What?
The concrete blocks of Ontario.
Oh, you just mean like the buildings? Like
The urban spaces.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. I feel a little
Yeah.
trapped in, but that's okay.
Yeah, those are
Pretty
the
good.
only things to see, unfortunately. We don't have any wide open spaces. It's really just concrete blocks. And then wide open
Yeah.
spaces surrounded by concrete blocks. So,
Yeah, you know, when we were driving like through Caledon, that's how I got to the story. When we were driving through Caledon to get to the Scandinave spa,
yeah.
it was actually pretty.
Yeah.
There was like farmland and stuff like that. So like there were some wide open spaces. That was nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been good. But
Yay.
happy to go home soon too.
Oh.
And have Lidia come with me.
Yeah, we're gonna go the same flight, guys. I'm so fucking excited.
Same.
Well, I mean, it's gonna be the airplane, but it's better than sitting next to a stranger.
Yeah, I get a friend on the airplane. I'm so
Yeah,
excited.
exactly. It's gonna be great.
Anyways, tell us about your
Okay,
your
guys.
story, your stitches.
Okay, so I got stitches, right? I got 2 stitches in my thumb. I have this long ass cut, like going through my thumb, like all the way on the first knuckle. So I would say it's like maybe like 2 inches long at the time
Pretty big.
of inception, I guess is what you call it. And so what had happened was I was polishing a wine glass, right? And I was holding the stem in one hand, and then I was holding like the polishing, what's it fucking called? Polishing material and the chalice of the wine glass in the other. And I was twisting it because we're not allowed to touch the chalice with our hands because like our hands are dirty and then the glasses are going to be dirty. So I was just like twisting the wine glass, and I guess something happened with the tension, or maybe the wine glass was like still hot from the dishwasher or something like that.
Yeah.
And something happened and the stem shattered off of the end of the chalice part of it. And I was still in motion, like doing the thing. I didn't notice it had shattered off, and I sliced my thumb open on it. And because of the amount of blood that was coming out of my thumb, I dropped the other part and I started holding onto my thumb. And I was just like, oh my God. And blood was already dripping. Like I was putting pressure on it and the blood was already dripping down. And like,
I would be too scared to look. I would just be like,
oh, I was so freaked out. And so immediately I
None of our
started looking
business.
around for the nearest sink. And the only sink that was really close by was like the kitchen sink. So I went over to the kitchen sink and I just like put my hand like into it basically. And there was no water or anything like that. It was just completely empty. And like there was just already a pool of my own blood in my other hand, like a
my
huge
God.
pool. And I was like, oh my fucking God. I've never bled this much in my life. And like, I start trying to turn on the sink, but it's this stupid ass fucking sink that it doesn't have any knobs or anything like that. And you have to put your knee on this pressure like thing paddle on
You're already
the
under enough
outside of the
stress
sink.
as it is.
And I was so confused. Yeah, literally. And I was trying to like put my knee into it, but it was sticky. It was stuck for some reason and the water just wasn't running. And then eventually someone came up to me and like helped me push it down. And then I put my knee on it and I was just running cold water. And my manager came up and so did like Chef. And so Chef was standing there and he was like, oh, you're gonna be fine, you just need a band-aid. And I was like, okay, yeah, okay. And like I guess I was freaking out and I was panicking a little bit, so I like wasn't really talking a lot. I was just staring at the mass amount of blood that was coming out of this tiny little, it seemed tiny at the time, cut on my thumb, and the water was pouring over it and the blood was just cascading. Like it was just
I'm pretty sure water like makes it bleed faster.
It was cold water, but yeah, I mean, possibly, yeah. So it was just cascading, just going down and down and down, and there was just so much blood. And he was like preparing a band-aid, and then my manager comes over and he's just like, oh shit, okay, don't worry guys, stay calm.
Everyone stay calm. Everyone stay fucking
He's like,
calm.
okay, it's gonna be okay, Lydia. He opened up the first aid thing. He's like, why the fuck isn't there any band-aids in here? There's no band-aid. There was just like this one tiny blue band-aid. He was like, don't worry, Lydia, I'm first aid trained. You like put pressure on it now. Like it's been running under the water for too long. Put pressure on it. I was like, okay. And at this point I started like tearing up. It didn't hurt, but I was just freaking out. And I was like, I'm freaking out, guys. I'm freaking out, guys. Like there's so much blood. Why won't it stop bleeding? I'm freaking out, guys. Like just telling them that I'm freaking out because I was like inner turmoil, you know?
Yeah, no kidding.
So he gives me a wet paper towel and I hold on to my thumb. And now I can only really describe this as if I was like juicing my thumb, because as I was holding it, pressure, the blood started pooling up in the top of my hand. Ew. And it was overflowing onto my hand as I was holding onto my thumb. And there was a paper towel there, so like nothing was working. And eventually my manager was just like, we're gonna have to take you to the hospital, it's not gonna be just a band-aid. And Chef was just like, it's fine, a band-aid is fine. And he was like, look at how much he's like,
there's blood all over your kitchen floor, my dude. Chef.
Yeah. And then he's like, okay, fine, we'll take her to the hospital. So I'm holding on to my finger, and then he's just like, okay, I'll put some gauze on it now. I was like, okay. So instead of putting gauze on it, he puts a Band-Aid on top of the cut, like this tiny little Band-Aid and like a little bit of polysporin, little blue Band-Aid. And then he covers it in one layer of gauze and then puts two pieces of tape, one on the top and one on the bottom, and it bled through almost immediately. And then he just goes into panic mode and just starts wrapping my finger in gauze. I'm like, aren't you first aid trained? And he was like, this is what they taught us at first aid. I was like, okay.
It's a little Band-Aid.
So
like,
he's wrapping the gauze. We use the entire fucking thing of gauze. And then for some fucking reason, he like puts the piece of gauze across my hand and around and back to my thumb to make like some sort of weird tourniquet.
He maybe mixed up like broken thumb and cut in thumb.
Yeah, he was going for it, man. He was really going for it. And then he was just like, okay, like that should be good enough. Like hold on to it, keep pressure, and like we're gonna go to the hospital. And it was after service had ended, so like most of the server assistants were like in the kitchen, and I was just like, okay, bye guys. And they were just like, what's going on? And I just like walked out of the kitchen like still in shock. And then I grabbed my shit and like I run outside with my manager, and then he's just like, okay, like let's go to the car. He's like, just hold pressure, like don't mind my car, it's like super messy, blah blah blah. I was like, okay, sure, whatever. So we get into the car and we start driving, and it's just like the most beautiful day outside. It was a Sunday afternoon. The sun was
Lydia's
shining.
having like an out-of-body experience.
Oh my god, it was gorgeous outside. And he put the windows down, and he had a sunroof, so he opened up the sunroof, put the windows down, and like the wind was just blowing in and the sun was shining, and like it was just such a beautiful moment. And then he was like, I'm gonna have a smoke, do you want a cigarette? And I was like, yeah. so he's like,
manager is also having a traumatic
he was like, honestly,
let's get the windows down.
He was like so happy to be out of there. He was like, it's such a beautiful day outside, I want to go to the beach right now. I was like, me too, I'm really glad to be out of there. He was like, same here. I was like, you're welcome, I'm glad I got injured for this. I know, it was really nice. So he's like, I guess you have to smoke this cigarette like one-handed. And he's like, that's fine. That's how people smoke cigarettes. I was like, yeah, it's going to be fine. So I take it in my left hand, which is the one that wasn't injured. And since I was on the passenger side, I was just like putting a bunch of ash and like smoke into his car. And like, I know he smokes, but I still feel like that's disrespectful. So I ended up swapping it over to my right hand, which has like this giant ass tourniquet gauze on it.
No. Lydia, no.
Yeah. And I'm like smoking it out of this one. And eventually I don't want to get any more ash in the car. And it was kind of like getting in my face, and like I'm not a smoker, so I was just like, you know, it was smelling really bad. So I put my hand out of the window, and we're like driving, and like it was just such a beautiful moment. And I just think I'm gonna remember forever just like this tourniquet, the shitty ass tourniquet thumb, and then just like a cigarette between these two fingers outside of this window on this beautiful sunny day, like Sunday afternoon, driving to the hospital.
Beautiful Sunday drive.
And it was honestly kind of nice. I was like, wow, this is sick. And then I get to the hospital. I wait a little bit, and then I get through like triage and stuff like that, and then finally I get in there, and the guy was just like, the doctor, sorry, he was like, okay, you're gonna need stitches. And I was like, no, I don't think I need stitches, can't you just glue it? And he was just like, no, I'm gonna put stitches, like I'm the medical professional, like trust me, you need stitches, otherwise the glue is just gonna come apart. I was like, okay, fine. So he puts in this numbing thing, and like honestly, the places where the numbing agent or whatever like went into my thumb still hurt more than the cut itself. Yeah, like it really did a number. And like I was massaging my thumb while this was happening to get like the numbing agent up into like the area where it was cut. And then he comes back in and he's just like, okay, like let's see if you're like fully numbed out. And I was like, okay, cool. So I give him my thumb, and he's just like, can you feel this? Can you feel this? And I wasn't looking because I was like, gross.
Yeah,
and
I wouldn't look either.
Yeah, and I was like, no, I don't feel anything. And he was like, oh, that's good, because I was just jamming this needle directly into the cut. I was like, oh my god. And I turned back around.
That's how they check?
And
I feel like it should be
so.
like a little tap first, not just like
jamming it in. And I turned back around and I look at it, and it started bleeding again because he was jamming the needle into the cut.
Are you sure? He's a medical professional?
Wait till you hear this. And then he's like, okay, so you're ready for the stitches. And I was like, oh, okay. I was like, this is my first time getting stitches. And he was like, oh, congratulations. This is my first time giving stitches. And I was like, what? And he was like, ah, ha, 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 ha. I'm just kidding. I've been in the medical field for 22 years. I just like to fuck around with my patients. He's like, me and my doctor friends like go out for drinks and like talk about how we mess with people throughout the day. I was like, oh my fucking god, I'm just another fucking joke. Great. Yeah.
Love
and
doctors.
Honestly, his nonchalantness about it kind of made me a little more nonchalant too, because like it could have been a lot worse. Like it could have been a lot worse, you know. So I'm blessed. But yeah, it was a good time. And then I went home, and yeah, it was still like bleeding a little bit, weirdly enough, only in the place that he jammed the needle in. So like it was already clotted enough. So for 2 days there was just like blood coming out of this one spot. Oh my god, it's better now. But like this guy was just playing with my thumb. He was like, this isn't serious, I'm just gonna have a little fun with this.
I'm just gonna jab the cut.
Yeah. And as I was leaving,
cut enough. Yeah,
he gave me two pairs of medical scissors, and he was just like, you can either come back here and wait for 3 hours again to get the stitches taken out, or you could just get a friend to do it. I was like, okay. So I was like, I'll just get a friend to do it. So he gave me scissors, and I have like medical scissors sitting with me. Like he gifted me these scissors, and he told me quickly how to do it. Like there's this thing you're supposed to hold on to, and then you cut the loop and then you pull, but I don't fucking remember which is which. So I need to look up a YouTube video. So I will be getting my stitches removed by my roommate via YouTube video.
Oh my god.
And that's where we're at, you guys. And I've had 5 days off. I'm feeling good. Feeling refreshed.
It sounds like a week.
It was
sounds like a week, and it just keeps going.
I know. It just doesn't end. I know.
I'm a little afraid for your roommate.
I'm a little worried.
That's a lot
too.
of pressure.
She's so excited. The other day, because like the next phase in the healing is to just like let it be in air and like just not like let it be dry and like let it scab over and like get better. So I was standing like outside the bathroom, and we were just talking, and she looked at my thumb and she like held it up to her face, and she's like, you and me, baby, soon it'll be you and me. To the stitches. Like she's sick.
Oh my god,
she's sick, bro.
Sounds like your roommate and this doctor need to compare notes.
I know, right? Like I was like, all right, bro, it's so fucking. She likes gross things though, weirdly enough.
Clearly.
Yeah, I was like telling her about how sometimes when I like stretch out my thumb too much, I can feel the stitches like kind of pulling at my skin, and she was like, ew, tell me more. Yeah.
So she might be the perfect person.
Yeah, I think so. Not squeamish apparently when it comes to other people's injuries.
Nice.
Yeah, it was a good time.
Sorry that happened. You handled it well.
It's okay. Thank you. I think I'm handling it pretty well too. Because it's totally fine. It doesn't really hurt that badly, like obviously at all anymore. And like it's just kind of funny.
Yeah, it's a good story.
Yeah, it is. And I have stitches. for the first time in my life. A lot of people have gotten stitches. My mom told me like 3 stories about her getting stitches. I was like, oh shit.
Wow.
I know, right? People just out here getting stitches, man. It's crazy.
I've never got stitches.
Like, comment, and subscribe if you've ever had stitches. So,
Yep.
on that note, you guys,
Okay.
while I was in the car with my manager, he was telling me about how he's going to start taking part in this, like, medical study for
I'm already worried.
recreational drugs or whatever being used in medical field.
Cool.
So, yeah. So this kind
Is
of
this like psychedelics?
Yes. So that piqued my interest, and I was just like, ooh, interesting. And I went into this topic thinking like, I'm just going to cover all of them. And the first one I looked up was LSD, and I just ended up looking up LSD for the entire time.
There's so much in there, right?
So interesting.
Crazy. I'm so excited for this.
Yay.
So excited.
Yeah. I'm fucking hyped too, man. Just, it's so cool. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, it's coming up in this generation. It's been 35 years since LSD has been banned everywhere for any use, no matter what, even medical. So it's made it really, really difficult for medical professionals to try to use it for its beneficial uses, which is kind of what it was being used for before it got banned. And it has a really interesting past. So I'm going to take you through a lot of history about LSD because it was so freaking interesting. Okay. So it was discovered by a Swiss chemist in 1938 when he was trying to create a derivative of a fungus, which would help. The idea of this derivative was to help ease postpartum hemorrhage, which is when after giving birth, a person bleeds a lot for a few weeks after. And this affects 1 to 5 in 100 women. I just said 5 in 100 women because like 1 to 5 in 100 women is such a shitty
At least 5.
Like sometimes 1. Like just make up your mind. Just say like 1 in 50 or something. 1 to 5 women. And I think, so while examining this derivative, he accidentally ingested a small dose through his finger. And that's how he discovered its power.
Put himself on a wine glass.
Yeah, exactly. He was like, oops, accidentally did it. And he said that he did it. He like took a little bit and he said he perceived an uninterrupted stream of fantastic pictures, extraordinary shapes with intense kaleidoscope play of colors. Which sounds really fantastic. And
just a fun time.
Yeah. And 3 days later, he ingested 250 micrograms, which the recommended in modern time for dosage is 100 to 200 micrograms. So he did a little bit above. He just went 0 to 100, bro. He was just like, that was fun.
Oh, really? He was like, that was fun. Let's do it again. No. He was like, I have no idea if there's lasting effects from that. No idea what it was.
And he was just like, scientists used to be fucking crazy. They would experiment on themselves all the fucking time.
I think they should.
You know what?
I feel like
I agree.
If you're not willing to experiment on yourself, you shouldn't experiment on other people. I think that should be a requirement for being a scientist.
I like that. Okay, so this guy, very logical, made a lot of sense. Yeah. Morals in the right place. So he did the 250 micrograms and he started riding home on his bike. And something interesting about why he was biking is that because of the World War II restrictions, automobile travel was not allowed. So he had to bike home. While he was biking, the LSD started to kick in and he started to hallucinate. No. And he had a bad trip. Like, he did not enjoy his time, I guess, because of the stress of biking and like just being in the middle of fucking nowhere. 250 milligrams as well. He said he saw demons. He said that furniture, when he finally got to his house, furniture was like transforming into demons. And eventually
I'm so impressed that he got to his house.
I know, because I guess it started kicking in.
He just kept biking through it.
He was biking through it. And then once he got home, he probably hit the peak because like there's a couple different stages. And so he must have hit the peak when he was home. And like, it was just too much. So eventually he felt like he was possessed too. And he was really scared. And that day was April 19th, 1943. And this day is known as Bicycle Day. And the first intentional LSD trip. It's like a little holiday among people who indulge in LSD.
It's like 420.
Yeah. Bicycle Day. Yeah. And you know what? I also think, this isn't in the records or anything, but I think that it's called tripping on LSD or an LSD trip because he was taking a trip. Like, he was on his bike taking a trip to...
He had a bad trip.
Yeah.
He had a bad bike trip.
Yeah. So I think that has kind of carried forwards, I think. That's my theory. This man... his last name is Hoffman. I apologize, I didn't write down his first name. But Hoffman continued to take small doses of LSD throughout his entire life. And he always hoped to find a use for it. Like for him, it was a hallucinogenic, and he just like enjoyed taking it. And he was like, I'm gonna eventually find a use for that. In his memoir, he emphasized that it is a sacred drug, and he says that, in quotations, I see the true importance of LSD in the possibility of providing material aid to meditation aimed at the mystical experience of a deeper, comprehensive reality.
Aww.
LSD changed his life. He said, again in quotes, it gave me an inner joy, an open-mindedness, a gratefulness, open eyes, and an internal sensitivity for the miracles of creation. It is just a tool to turn us into what we are supposed to be. Just a moment of silence for how beautiful that is. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And honestly, good for him for like continuing after having a bad trip too. He was probably like, okay, that was too much.
He's like, that was a lot.
Now I know.
Let's try to
get
get
a little less. But it's good to know
fun.
that you can have a good trip after having a bad trip too. You just have to probably take less is probably the lesson we've learned from it, because it sounds like he was microdosing every day or like every weekend or something like that. Like it was just a part of his life. And then eventually in the 1960s, it was prohibited because it was causing people, there's a couple reasons. One of the reasons is that it was causing people to freak out because they would take 500 micrograms, which is 300 micrograms over the maximum that you should be taking. And so because of the like hold that the public got on it, it made it difficult for medical professionals to study. Even in a controlled environment, people were just starting to be really distrustful of LSD at all. And one bad story of one bad trip would be exacerbated by the media. And then that would be the only side of it that people would see. And then it would eventually have to be banned because of these situations.
This, I don't know if this is something you're going to cover, but is this part of like the war on drugs?
I'm not going to cover that, no. But
okay.
I am going to cover the war.
Okay, well, different war.
But
because
yeah.
I think that it was like a Reagan thing that he launched this like war on drugs and shut down all of the like clinical trials that was happening on psychedelics. I don't think it was limited to LSD, but it was like LSD, psilocybin.
Yeah.
All of these things. There was a lot of clinical trials going on, and then Reagan pretty much shut them all down. I'm pretty sure it was Reagan. And now there's like a resurgence of them. But that was like, you had an opinion on this, the like drug talks?
Don't do drugs campaign or whatever.
The dare. Yeah. It was part of that whole thing that like scared an entire generation.
To scare people into not doing drugs and stuff like that. Yeah, that's true, because we were taught really like horrible things about LSD, like how it would change you forever, blah blah blah.
How you would literally die and never be the same.
Yeah, I believe it.
Once and you're addicted.
Well, he probably had to, because like people were abusing it a little bit, to be honest. In the LSD terms, like I can't really speak on like crack or like because crack was one of the ones that they hated, right? And I'm pretty sure the war on drugs too was also like racially motivated. I think I watched a documentary on that as well, that like he was banning weed and then just mostly targeting black people for doing weed or like doing weed. I sound like such a dweeb.
Possession.
Smoking weed. Possession. Yeah.
People can't see I'm doing air quotes.
She's doing air quotes. Yeah. But LSD, I think it was I'm sure it was a part of the war on drugs. I think you're probably right. Agree. And after 35 years, so Reagan shut it down, right? He was just like, stop it all. And it wasn't allowed in any form whatsoever, even in the medical field. He just had to get rid of it and get it off the streets, you know? The youth was being affected. So after 35 years of no use, it was finally allowed to be used in medical professionals recently on a terminally ill cancer patient. And this is kind of a lot of how it's being used for mental health purposes. So we will get back to that in a hot second. But I just wanted to note quickly that Hoffman, the Swiss guy who discovered LSD, died at 102 years old. Yeah. LSD might be the secret to longevity. 102, bro. 102.
What year was it?
That he died?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Or what, like...
Early 2000s, like 2008, I think.
Oh.
Right?
Wow.
Maybe.
That was so much more recently than...
Well, 100 years
I
is a long
expected.
time.
Yeah, that's true. I guess that do be true.
Well, Hoffman died. I don't know. Philip Seymour Hoffman? No. Okay, he died. Yeah, I was right. He died in 2008. Did I say 2008?
Wow.
I don't know.
You did.
Yes.
Okay, I was going to say people didn't live as long then, but that's not true.
right? Isn't that insane?
That's crazy.
So let's see how the studies were going in the beginning. Previously, LSD was being used in the 1940s by psychiatrists, and they were interested in using it as a therapeutic agent, and it was actually marketed under a different name, Delist, in the 1950s. DelYSID. Delicid? Delicid.
I don't have the ability to like picture words.
I understand.
I'm going to go with you on this one.
So it's okay. I'm not going to bring it up again. That's just a fun fact. So, it was being used in a lot of different ways. Firstly, like a lot of people could get their hands on it, right? So it was being used as a therapeutic agent on one side of things. It was also being used by the U.S. Army and the CIA, and they were experimenting with LSD as a truth serum. And also maybe warning, this kid might get a little bit dark. So the project was called MK Ultra, and it was given the code name MK Ultra, and it was to like this Central Intelligence Agency program, and it began in the 1950s, and it lasted for like 10 years ish up until like 1962, and it was sometimes known as a part of the CIA's mind control program, in quotations. And during the Cold War, the CIA was conducting secret experiments with LSD and other drugs for mind control, information gathering, and other purposes. And I read this giant ass article about this, and I'm not going to cover all of it, but basically they were putting people on LSD and then torturing them to try to get information out of them. And it was just absolutely terrible, like the things that they were doing, because LSD, it's supposed to be this like beautiful experience, as Hoffman was describing. And these people were like, oh, well, if you're in a vulnerable state, then you'll be able to give information and stuff like that. But they would unknowingly drug people and then torture them. And people would have like lifelong effects from the trauma that they would go through because of like these interrogations. And a lot of it was
times
on
a million.
Yeah, because you had no idea that you were on drugs. Some people didn't find out that they were dosed with LSD until years later. And that kind of explained to them eventually like why the torture was so intense, or why the questioning was so intense, or why they were just like not okay. Yeah, it was fucked up.
They're like, the U.S. government can summon the devil.
Oh, God.
Just believe that for you.
Oh, God. That's horrible. I would have I would have freaked out, bro. So
same.
Fuck.
Just give me LSD. Don't torture me. That would be enough for me.
So bad. So fucking bad. So the long-term effects of LSD have been studied, and some of the worst things that could happen would be called the bad trip, or as they called it in the therapeutic sense, a challenging experience. And the prolonged effects of LSD, the prolonged effects of it could have to do with a patient's predisposition to epilepsy or paranoid personality traits. So they recommend starting on low doses and really going through a lot of like psychiatrical evaluation, and just like if you're not, just don't take it. It's okay, like you don't need to, you know. And something nice about LSD is that it has no come down, unlike other drugs or alcohol, and your emotional state after taking LSD and after the trip ends is recovered relatively quickly, which is cool. And recent studies have also established a clear link between the lifetime use of classical hallucinogenics and a lower probability of developing mental problems. Cool.
Boom, roasted.
Yes, that was a lot of big words. I hope you guys could keep yeah, pretty fucking cool, eh? Like, it's actually insane. And like, people just use it for evil and then ban it, and then it so
and it's kind of crazy because like I still feel the effects of the war against drugs and like the DARE programs and stuff like that, because like in my head as you're saying these things, like it's hard for me to still wrap my head around the fact that like it just came from fungus. And it's just like a nice natural experience and there's no effects. Like my brain wants to be like, that's not true.
Oh,
because it was like
freaking
nailed into us as kids that like this is dangerous, this is bad, this is the worst thing you could ever do.
I totally agree. I've been afraid of trying LSD, and even after figuring out this, or like doing all of this research, it's just a derivative. Like it is created in a lab, but it's a derivative from a fungus. Like that was the original form of it, and they just like took off a molecule or whatever. Yeah, but I still probably won't try it. Like even after
me neither.
even after all of this, like, and there's such a high probability of having like a mind opening experience and like a spiritual experience and stuff like that, and like doing it properly in the right setting, in the right like mood and stuff like that. It could be a totally okay experience, but I'm still terrified. Thank you, Dare.
Same. Right? They did a good job.
They did. Yes. In the
achieved their goal.
1950s to 70s, LSD was actually used in the treatment of anxiety, depression, and psychosomatic diseases, and they tried it on alcohol addiction as well. They've also studied the importance of a proper set, which is your thought, mood, expectations prior to doing LSD and doing the treatment. And they looked at the importance of your setting. So the physical and interpersonal environment. So they would have a therapist with you giving you constant attention the entire time you were tripping. Or sometimes people would get music stimulus. They had, in quotes, comfortable or tasteful furniture, and also flowers or pictures. So good environment while the person undergoes treatment, like just something very comfortable is really important. And yeah, I kind of thought that was really interesting because like we talk about this today, like with some of my friends who have done LSD or like other drugs. I actually don't know anyone who's done LSD, fun fact. Like we always talk about how important it is, like for mushrooms, for example, to be in like a good mindset before you start doing the mushrooms. So it's cool that this is actually studied and this is actually something that medical professionals recommend. So it was used and proved most effective in psychedelic treatment, defined as 12 to 14 hours after one had like a high dose of LSD, 200 to 500 micrograms. And during that 12 to 14 hours afterwards, someone would provide constant attention and constant like therapy, and also helping people go through like the peak or the transcendental experience, and just to like have someone there. And this in modern times is called a trip sitter.
Aw,
We
that's so
still
cute.
do this shit. Yeah. So it's so cool that like we're still following the rules of the drug and of the way that it was designed to help people. It's cool. Quick note on alcohol addiction. It was not notable differences in helping people with alcohol addiction, and it was similar to other forms. Like there's this disulfiram, which you can take as an alcohol treatment, and it basically just it's a pill you have to take every day, and when you drink alcohol it gives you really negative side effects. So it kind of you'll throw up almost immediately, you'll feel sick, you'll have a headache, blah blah blah, make people associate alcohol with feeling bad. So LSD didn't do any better or worse, and because it didn't do any worse or better, they said that it could be used as an alternative to these other treatments, which is taking LSD. So it can be counted in a group with these other treatments, but not better or worse. So
Okay.
yeah, you know, they did it.
That's a thing, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And for like psychosomatic illnesses and depression and anxiety, LSD treatments groups showed better results in terms of general health at 6 and 12 months. So people were feeling better after one trip of LSD for like an entire year afterwards. Fantastic. Insane stuff. So, oh yeah, a couple of stories about it getting banned. The first one was in the 60s. This guy, Ken Casey, volunteered to take part in the MK Ultra project for the CIA. He was a student at Stanford University, and after taking part in the project, he went on to promote the use of LSD because he liked it so much. And he created a group called Casey and the Merry Pranksters, and they hosted a series of LSD parties in San Francisco where they would go to a Grateful Dead concert and they would do acid tests and like experiment with the drug and experiment on the psychedelic effects of fluorescent paint and like cool lighting and fun music at Grateful Dead concerts.
Amazing.
I know, right? And then these two psychology professors at Harvard University, Timothy Leary and Richard Alpert, administered LSD and psychedelic mushrooms to Harvard students, to volunteer students, and they were documenting the effects. And I know, and this was in the early 1960s. They were documenting the effects of the drug and on the students' consciousness, but the scientific community criticized the legitimacy of the studies because Leary and Alpert were also tripping while conducting the experiments.
They're like, we're just gonna have a big party and call it science.
Yeah, exactly. So they eventually were dismissed from Harvard.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. But they went on to become symbols of the hippie counterculture. And yeah, interesting stuff. So in the war times, in bad times, okay, experiments were being done by this doctor in 1959. Or no, this wasn't wartime. This was war. There was a different war. There was a lot of wars. So Dr. Van Murray Sim, the founder of Edgewood Arsenal's program, he was kind of a sketchy dude, in all honesty, and he would do these kinds of experiments on himself, and he would like take these deadly like poisons to see what it would do to his body, and he survived most of it. And he was also on a team that was looking to find a truth serum for like the army. So there was this thing called like a red oil, which is like a synthetic marijuana, and he would like practice it on himself, and he would like take drugs like on a daily, which were banned, and he was just like, it just makes me feel better. Like it just makes me feel lighter. Like he was just an insane kind of dude. And he was interested in researching psychochemical warfare, which is a search for mentally incapacitating chemicals to replace guns and grenades on the battlefield. Scary stuff. So
I don't understand the logistics of that, but okay.
Everyone's just tripping too high to like.
How do they give everyone the drugs, and then everyone's just like freaking out and like, I don't know, like ripping out their own hair or something? Like
I guess so. Like everyone's just in their own kind of thing, or everyone's just like lying down on the grass tripping together, and they're like, look at the stars, dude. Why fight? So he was running LSD experiments, and I think, to be honest, I think his ideas were a little bit more sinister in the beginning. So the special code name that this project received was Material Testing Program EA1729, and experiments, they were quite mean, and honestly they did not prepare people for the drug whatsoever. Like they didn't give them the proper setting or the proper set, so a lot of the soldiers, the volunteer soldiers who they were experimenting on, ended up having really bad trips. So in one testing event, Sim wanted to see how soldiers would do if they didn't know they were taking LSD. So if the enemy were to somehow get a hold of LSD and then inject it into somebody, or like give it to somebody without them knowing, he wanted to see how it would affect people. So he drugged a bunch of soldiers and this is how he did it. So he invited a bunch of volunteer soldiers to be a part of this testing thing, and after a day of medical and psychological evaluations and tests, they were invited to unwind at a cocktail party. And suddenly, one of the officers started making a disturbance. He went berserk, in quotation marks, and the person who is reporting on this said that he started to feel isolated and paranoid, and he felt threatened. And he found out later that the drinks, him and the others, the cocktails, had been laced with LSD. And he only learned that years later. And I know, so bad, so bad. Like, this was a fucking army. Like, this was a project that they were doing, and now people use LSD as like people slip people LSD. This is not an uncommon situation, and it was discovered in the fucking army. Are you kidding me? So people were telling Sim to stop doing the experiments because LSD coupled with the stress of a real interrogation could cause, quotations, chemically induced psychosis in a chronic form. So bad trip forever. So the intelligence command agreed for some reason to continue the interrogations, but the conditions were that it was carefully controlled and the subjects were not American. So they go to Europe, baby.
Wait, I don't know how that fixes the problem.
It doesn't.
It's fine. They're not American. Don't worry
doesn't,
about
but
the
this
psychosis.
guy was so notorious. Like, he could get around a lot of different rules, and like it seems like he had a lot of push and pull in like the army and in just in general in his life, and he was just really believing in this mission to create a truth serum or whatever, to like psychologically torment people and to have psychological psychosomosis warfare or whatever the fucking word was. Like, he was like, I believe in this cause, but he was also unhinged. Like, he was
clearly clearly unhinged.
So in 1961, they go to Europe. Their mission,
Yeah.
Operation Third Chance, was to dose unwitting people with LSD and then measure the results. And this is how that would happen. A group of the like men, the soldiers and the doctors and the people who were measuring the results would seek out like a safe house. And then once one of the European subjects of the study arrived, the agents would initiate casual banter in the living room.
Did they know they were part of a study?
The person didn't know.
Anything? Were they like,
Yeah.
hey, come to our house? And the person's
Yeah.
like, okay.
Yeah, they were like, let's be friends. Like, we're from overseas. Like, come hang out with us. Like, we're cool. We're like, like they just had no idea. So they put powdered LSD on the inside of the glass that they would give to the guest. And then it was like totally unseeable. It was just a dry residue. And once the test subject was made comfortable, a member of the special purpose team would offer everyone refreshments. And the member who was offering refreshments would make a show out of pouring everyone a drink from the same bottle so that the person felt safe and that the bottle wasn't dosed. But the cup was already dosed. So once the drug took effect, they kind of started to notice and study and realize like how people were affected by it. So after about like 20 minutes, or when the person started acting kind of weird, they would employ a verbal gambit to direct the test subject out of the room and into a room with a polygraph test. And as the peak would happen, the interrogators' techniques would get more and more harsh, and their intention was to cause maximum anxiety and fear. And one of the people who were there noted that they would use verbal degradation and bodily discomfort and threats against the subject's life. And in 2 cases, the team said to the subjects that their mental condition would be permanent unless they cooperated. And the questioning,
What the hell?
I know, isn't it so
my
fucked
God.
up? The questioning would last for like 8 hours, like 9 hours, like as long as the drug was effective, sometimes even more.
These
So
people didn't
fucked up.
even do anything wrong.
No, they're just unwitting
for, like-
subjects. And they would just ask them about like the war or like about what was happening and if they had any intelligence. And sometimes people genuinely didn't have information, but they would continue to question them because they were still studying how LSD was being used. So even if they had no information, they would still continue to question them and like just like threaten them and scare them because it was a part of this larger LSD experiment. So this one guy, Clovis, who was like a pioneer on the team, I guess he was one of the original dudes, he was the one who had like the greatest reservation about how it was used. He was frustrated about it because it was not really meaningful science that was being gained from these interrogations.
No
and
shit.
and they weren't able to isolate the effect of the drug, and he said that the chaos was impossible, and the program was suspended in 1963. And because of the mixture of LSD mixed with torture, there was lifelong effects of paranoia, anxiety, loss of self, loss of trust in yourself, others, like all of society. And in my opinion,
I feel like that has nothing to do with the LSD. I feel like that just has to do with the being tricked into an interrogation, being threatened for your life, that you have this information that you know nothing about. Like if someone took me into a room and was like, I'm going to kill you unless you tell me something about the war, I would probably also have lasting psychological
100%.
trauma without the LSD.
Absolutely. Like, oh God, it's so fucked up. And just to use like this drug in such an evil way is just so fucked up. And I think that this is one of the main underlying reasons why it was banned. I'm not 100% sure though, but I'm hoping maybe that Reagan, I don't know a lot about this guy, but maybe he was like, these experiments need to stop.
That's not the vibes I'm getting. Like the US military can get away with everything. Like they like still today they do a lot of like sketchy shit and a lot of questionable stuff, inhumane stuff, and they can kind of do whatever they want. I'm pretty sure like the president doesn't even really have that much control over the military.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So
I guess I was just really going into it with like a more positive mind frame because I didn't want to.
I could be wrong.
I didn't want to blame like completely, because what everyone is saying in the media is that the LSD was banned because of the countercultural use by like the hippie wave in the 60s. And I maybe this is like too positive of a mindset to have, but I like to think that maybe like these experiments, maybe someone in the government was like whispering in Reagan's ear and was like, you need to stop the LSD tests because they were like LSD positive or something like that. Like they liked it and they thought it was a good drug and they knew what was happening was completely like inhumane and fucked up. So maybe there was someone on the inside who was trying to persuade him in a certain direction, not to just to ban LSD outright so that it wasn't used for torture. So that it was taken out of the hands of people who were using it for evil. And I just don't want to blame it on like the countercultural society, because it seems like a little like it seems so fucking annoying that people were just using it like for fun and then they were just like, you're having too much fun, it's banned. I would prefer, which I don't know if it's true, but
that's
I would
why everyone's mad about it.
Yeah, I would prefer that it was banned because it was being illegally and immorally used in the military.
But I'm pretty sure if you ban stuff, the U.S. military can still have access to it.
Fuck, bro.
Like, I'm pretty sure they can do whatever. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I'm sure they have
worry
access
that
to a
you are
lot
correct.
of illegal things.
Yeah.
And I think that's what the whole, like, anger is about. Is that this, like, really, not in the hands of the military, in the hands of good people, this drug could have really positive effects. You know, people, instead of being medicated their entire lives for anxiety or PTSD, they can have one hit and be better for a really long time. But it was like taken out of the hands of those people because of like political tensions, basically, between like the left and the right and liberal thinkers and whatever. I think that's like the whole contention around it. But I get the
desire,
wanting to believe it was
yeah, I just really
not motivated by that.
I just want there to be more good in the world, I think.
We can pretend that.
We can pretend.
You know,
we can pretend.
We'll never know. It could be.
Yeah, it could be. It could be. And yeah, I think that I'm really excited that it's starting to like kind of get put into the hands of good people again, like after 35-ish years, maybe 40 at this point. People are being able to use it in like experiments and trying to figure out how it can be used for good, and just continuing the experiments that had already started in the 50s and in the 60s, like for therapeutic use and for use, like you were saying, for like PTSD and anxiety and depression and stuff like that. So I guess the question I will leave you all and ourselves with is like, how can we legalize LSD while keeping it out of the hands of evil people, which maybe is a moot point at this point, because the evil people might already have LSD in their hands and might already be
like
using
I don't think
it.
the legalizing affects them, unfortunately.
Yeah, they're above the law, right?
Yeah. I don't think making things illegal keeps people with bad intentions off of them. Like, I feel like people with good intentions are the most likely people to follow the law.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's true. They're like, no, the law says, yeah, that's a good point.
I think regulating it is the best way to do it. Not to make it illegal, but to like have more regulation. Sometimes legalizing things gives you more control over how it's used. And I think we saw that like in Canada when they legalized weed.
Yeah,
they're able to have more control, and people are able to use it safely now. You know, we can make sure it's not laced and get it from licensed retailers, and the government can control and regulate it.
Yeah. So that's a good route that we can take.
Is the option.
Yeah. Special permits for it. Like,
make it illegal to psychologically make it illegal to torture people. Just leave it at that.
Maybe start there.
Leave the drugs out of it.
Yeah, seriously.
Just make it illegal to torture people, period.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Oh, man. So fucked up. Oh, God. I can't even imagine, like, being tortured while tripping, while unknowingly tripping. Like, it just really, like, it freezes my heart. Like, that, I just feel like it just really hurts. Like, ugh. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. Yes, and that is the topic today. And if you guys are interested in reading more about it, I highly recommend checking out The New Yorker. They wrote a really long article about it, and only a couple of the stories were taken from there. Mostly about the CIA was like their entire interest. It was so interesting and also really sad and like really just fucked up, like the amount of different ways that they would torture people. Like, for example, this one man, they had him on like a continuous LSD trip for 90 days while they were like interrogating him and torturing him and stuff like that. And he is not okay. He died 3 years later. Yeah.
3 years later.
Yeah, he was fucked up. Yeah. Not the right way to use it. Yeah. I know, right? Rest in peace. You deserved better, buddy.
All right, so that brings us to the end of the podcast. Thank you, everybody, so much for tuning in this week and listening to Lydia's little chat about drugs, about LSD, and about how drugs are to be used for good and not evil.
Yeah, drugs are good.
And people ruin things.
That's a good
for everyone.
takeaway.
The few ruin things for everyone.
Yeah.
So that sucks. And fuck the U.S. military. Also.
Yeah, fuck the U.S. military all the way. You guys are the worst.
And if you want to let us know what you think, you can head over to our Instagram, which is very.unimportant.people. You can find us on Twitter, @unimportantppl. You can email us at hatersclickhere@gmail.com. That's HATRS clickhere@gmail.com. We're on TikTok. Come find us on TikTok. And we're also on Patreon. You can find us on Patreon if you want. But you'll have to go to our Instagram first. So go to our Instagram. Go to the bio, go to our profile, go to the bio, click the link tree, Patreon, you're there. Bam. And that's it for us this week. Have a great